And everybody, welcome to a different Wednesday evening Arkansas Diamond Report. Dudley Dawson. I'm Jason Patterson. I want to thank you guys for jumping on with us this evening. Um, Lots of stuff kind of going on. Last weekend, I know that Arkansas dropped that series to Georgia. This isn't like last year's team where right around this time it felt like the wheels were starting to fall off a little bit. This pitching staff has not been stressed like it was last year. Uh, the bats are still there. This is the best time Arkansas actually could have lost a series on the road against a top 10 Georgia team. It's been kind of a not an up and down season. It's been kind of a whirlwind season so far. And I'm going to tell you, Dudley, this I don't think I know that Dave doesn't like to lose series, but this was one that was more digestible than most.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You're catching Texas A&M at the worst possible time. This is a team that was consensus preseason number one. New head coach in Michael Early after Jim Schlossnagle made his way to Texas, which is the ultimate in betrayal and all that when you're an A&M fan, I guess. But obviously it's worked out well for them as Texas is number one, Arkansas number two this week.
Yep.
Texas A&M has won 7 games in a row. 5 of those have been conference games. 2 against non-conference games against Sam Houston State and Tarleton State, who they beat 11-2 the other day. Their offense has come alive, and they had one of those games that kind of redirect your season, rallying from, I think, down 10 to winning 18-17 in one game last week. Jason Laviat and those guys are coming alive, and you've got an interesting matchup in Thursday night's game, and I have to catch myself because I'm used to saying Friday. Thursday night game, you got Ryan Prager, who went toe-to-toe last year with Hagen Smith at Bluebell Park, had a great game against Arkansas. He's not fared as well this year. He's only 2-2 with a 3.93 ERA, and that's over 6 in SEC games. But they know what kind of pitcher he is. He's had success against Arkansas before. Now, I say that with the caution that there's not a lot of guys left over from last year that faced him last year.
Yeah.
So you don't have too much history there. But he's 2-2, 3.93 ERA, as I said, over 6. And you got Zach Root obviously going Thursday. And then the weather and Mother Nature will dictate when they play the rest of the game, scheduled for Friday and Saturday, but we'll see.
Hey, isn't there an 870 boy that just started to crack that top 3 rotation?
Yes, Gage Wood not only is back on the active roster, he's back to his number 2 starting spot in the starting rotation. Gabe Gackle, the preseason SEC Pitcher of the Year. I don't know if the weight was a little bit too much. Don't know if it's mechanical, or whatever, but it just hasn't worked out. He obviously pitched well in relief last year, and it looks like that's where he's headed back. You'll see what you can get out of Gage Wood. I don't know how long he can go. You're really back to a spring training type start to me. And you got Johnny Whole bullpen coming in, so we'll see. See what it turns out. But Zach Root and Ryan Prager in that first game, and it's going to be big because as we all know, that first game usually sets the tone for the series. Didn't last week, obviously Georgia came back, but let's see how this plays out this weekend.
I think that it's going to work out really well too with Zach Ertz. The way that he pitched down in Georgia last week, he's battled seems like every week this season, and now you're starting to go down that home stretch with A&M, Texas, also again. Escaping the life out of me. It's killing me here. The last part of the season where you have a guy now coming in with Gage Wood. You didn't have that last year. This time last year, like I was saying at the beginning, that's when you started to see the wheels fall off. You started to see the pitching falter a little bit more. More pressure was on Hagen Smith. Now you've got 3 starters, really 4 if you want to count Aiden Jimenez, and you don't know exactly where he's going to fit with Gage Wood. I would think that he would probably see more day 2 action than day 3 action. And this is really going to set up well for Arkansas whenever it hits mid-May, because these arms are still going to be somewhat fresh.
Yeah, that's the hope. Obviously, Aiden Jimenez has been the MVP on the pitching staff this year, and Zach Root deserves a lot of credit as well. But when
Yes.
you talk about fitting in the jigsaw puzzle and different things that Aiden Jimenez has been able to do, he's just been a big get, especially since they didn't even know if they were going to be able to pitch him this year, and coming back from that Tommy John surgery and all that. But what a year he's had. And yeah, I do suspect that they would love to get length from Zach Root on Thursday night, and then have Aiden Jimenez ready to go in the second game if they can. But I will tell you, if they need Aiden Jimenez in that first game, they'll turn to him and come back to him in that third game if they need to.
Really quick, Michael Kepsky says, dang, the Hogs were so close winning last week. And those last two games, they had leads. And it was just really tough. Georgia really battled. But also going into the A&M series, somewhat thinking that maybe Brett Iredale's a little overrated. I think he's just got a slump right now.
Yeah, Eddie, it happens to a lot of players, and he came firing out of the season, and they're learning how to pitch him a little bit now, but I'm sure he'll adjust as most high level players do. Overrated? No, I think, as you said, I think he's had a little slump now. I know also he had a question about Reese Robinette. Mm-hmm. Well, he was kind of blocked at first base. You're not going to take Cam Kozilla out, and Nolan Souza obviously was that's an interesting situation where he had some big moments, but also struggled at times. It appears that he's lost for the season, and Cam Kozil is going to play second, it looks like. And Reese Robinette, who had 3 doubles the other night after not starting since 2023, had been having great practices, had a great attitude, according to Coach Van Horn. And so now you've got a situation where you've got Robinette probably going to be your starter at first, especially if he hits.
Yep,
he's always been the best defensive guy over there.
He has, and with that possibility of moving Koshel over to second. I don't know, where does Rocco Pepe fit into this, because there's another bat that you have got on the bench that had popped this year.
Yeah, he's had a little bit of an injury, and that's kept him from getting some at bats. I don't know where he's at in that situation now, because they haven't. He hasn't played a lot lately, hardly at all. But the Kozil started at second Tuesday night. Robinette started at first, and I would be surprised if we don't see that going that way. Although, you also, Gabe Frazier had a decent night or decent first game there and really the whole weekend at Georgia. So I guess it's going to be a matchup thing. So one way or the other, Kozil will be in the lineup, that's for sure, whether he's at first or second. And then they'll probably, decide to look at the splits and analytics and go from there as to who's going to be the other one on that side of the infield.
And I want to go over to the batting side for just a second too, because Iredale's batting 297 this year, just a shade under 300. That's basically the difference between three more hits right now for him. Top 7 batters are batting over 300 or right at 300. And last year, you're looking at some of these numbers. You had three guys that were batting over 300, and that was what Dave was really talking about last year at the end of the season, going out and getting guys that can hit doubles and triples and not home runs, because last year in total through the season, they had 93 doubles. So far through 38 games, they've got 79 doubles. And if I'm not mistaken, let me dig the triples really quick. They have doubled their triples from last year. So, he went out and found the guys that could put balls in play, but not only that, reach the fence and really do some damage to that pitching staff that they're facing. You're on.
So is it better to double your triples or triple your doubles? I don't know. It's probably both ways, but it's this is a team that is 24-1 here at home at Baum-Walker Stadium. We obviously know the one game they lost was the 9th and 10th inning against Missouri State, and certainly that it was a tough deal. They get them next Tuesday up there obviously, so that'll be interesting. But I think that what you've noticed most this season is the outfield has been so versatile. They've been able to hit, do a lot of good base running, played pretty good defense. There's been a couple things, but this is I never would have suspected that Kendall Diggs would have trouble getting at bats, and that's been the case this year. I feel sorry for him because he was, before he got injured last year, he was on a tear. And now, as I said, he can't get in the lineup. I still think somewhere down the line he's going to get a big hit. But right now, he's not in the outfield rotation. He's not getting any time at first base. That also is something that may be looked at as well. Him playing some first base, although I doubt it. I think that they're going to go with the better defensive thing over there right now.
I think so too. I've got to get back to Michael Kepsky real quick. He was talking about, he says, is Arkansas's batting approach homer or bust? It's not. Last year, it felt like that. And I think it felt like that because they felt like they needed to with the pitching. They needed to put quick numbers on the board. This year, they don't have to. The pitching staff has been able to carry the team through 5-6 innings and allow enough time for the lineup to get through 2-3 times to start putting some crooked numbers up. And so I think that's where the different approach too is at the plate this year.
Michael, according to the stats that I have, and I believe they're accurate, Arkansas only swings at the first pitch 4 out of 10 times, not 9 out of 10. Also, they're leading the SEC in hitting both overall and still in SEC play. So I think that obviously the people that came at hitting coach last year,
one.
Yeah, they've changed that mantra around. I mean, it's not been home runs. Yes, there have been plenty of home runs, but most of all, Charles Davelin, Cam Cozil, those guys have both gone opposite field, have sprayed the ball around to different parts. I do not believe that's the philosophy this year, and I do not believe that's what these stats tell me, and also what my eyes tell me, although I know that I am not a fan, and so I look at things a little bit differently than a lot of people do. It's just it's a thing you learn over the years. You try to do the eye test, and then you go look at the numbers. And I think that obviously this offense has been great this year, as Georgia's announcers kept saying last week, and I know it was a mutual broadcast, but they were Georgia's home announcers. Yeah. The Arkansas offense is something to behold. And, in games that where their pitchers really didn't give them a chance early on, in 2 of the games, they fought to the bitter end and just needed one more hit in both of those last 2 games. It wasn't as if they lost 13-2. They lost 7-6 those last 2 games.
Yep. And I really think that at this point, I think that Nate Thompson should be in the running for assistant coach of the year.
Probably will be, depending on how the rest of the year goes. There's obviously a lot of good candidates. I gotta figure it's going to be somebody from the SEC. The way they stack those rankings, Clemson tries to fit in there as well, and obviously you've got some other good teams from some other conferences. But the SEC, as kind of as expected, is the dominant conference, even though Texas A&M is charging from behind and not leading the pack as the consensus was to start the year.
So let's talk about the BogleBombers for just a few moments, because they scored a huge victory at home last weekend against South Carolina. They went down to Conway, took care of business against UCA as well, and it seems like the start of the SEC season was more the outlier now for Difel and the Hogs, because after that happened, the first 5 games, 6 games, it's been on a trajectory straight up from there.
Yeah, both teams obviously went to Ole Miss to start their SEC season. Softball team lost 2 of 3. Came back on that Sunday. Baseball team won 2 of 3. But since then, and really when you're playing Oklahoma, I mean, obviously they were one of the best programs, if not the best program in the country, and one of the top ones in the conference and nationally right now. But I've been very impressed with what they've been able to do. Peyton Burnham has been a big big help in rounding out that pitching staff. Robin Herron can't throw to her her arm falls off. Cam Harrison has had some good nights as well. They were able to get some good work this week from Lexi. I think that they're in good shape. Now, you've got a break this weekend, at least an SEC break. You're playing Colorado State. Those games are scheduled for 2:30 on Friday and 5:30 or 5 o'clock on Friday, and then 10:30 a.m. on Saturday morning, which I'm planning on being at that if it's not raining. So, we'll see. I mean, obviously, I think tomorrow's going to be a big day in terms of what happens in the Arkansas Texas A&M series, but also that's when the meteorologists that Dave trusts and we'll get together and we'll see how they play it out. I myself would hate to have Saturday and Sunday off.
Oh, I'm going to tell you what, but somebody's got to do it though. Somebody's got to do it. If that does happen, it's going to be a very busy Friday for a lot of folks because that's going to be a doubleheader in softball, doubleheader in baseball. And so if that does happen, keep your eyes out, folks, because Dudley and myself are going to be burning Twitter up. I mean, we might break it. We just might break it.
We're going to exit out. We'll do what we need to do. But it sure sounds like from all the meteorologists I watch and Josh Rugger, shout out to Josh Rugger.
He's the best.
He's my dude. I follow him more than anybody else. But I think that got that situation where you have to try to get these games in, and it just appears that everything is going to be a deluge on Saturday. May wipe out a lot of things, not just baseball and not just the red-white football game. Of all weekends for it to storm, this may not have been the best one.
Yep. And so just keep an eye out on that, folks. Like Dudley just said, too, there's a possibility there might not be a spring game this year, too. So like Sam said, though, if you're going to play, I mean, if there's a way of doing it, they're going to put the game in. I just have a feeling that there's going to be some thunder and lightning that's really going to damper on that stuff.
Yeah, and I hope a lot of people know that, whether it's rain or whatever, lightning, anytime you have a lightning strike at either ballpark, and I assume it would be the same way with the red-white game, you can't do anything for 30 minutes. You can't throw a pitch, you can't warm up, do any of that stuff. That's something that's come along in the last decade, really more than, as a safety prevention measure. But we'll just see how it plays itself out. Get a good night's sleep tonight, and we'll figure it out starting tomorrow, I guess.
Definitely. Let's talk about Coach Musick for just a second. She's really starting to make some headway with the way this roster starting to form up. Also, the coaching staff went down the road to Farmington and cherry-picked a guy, didn't she?
Yeah, Coach Johnson, I've counted him as a good friend for a long time. He's obviously had an excellent career there. I think this is a challenge that he's looking forward to, but he texted me during the Kelsey Musick introductory press conference and told me what a great coach she is, and his daughter actually played for her. So there's a familiarity there, but I think he's excited about this. I know Farmington will they'll be able to take that job, and they've got a great culture that they've got out there. They'll continue to be great, but he's leaving off of back-to-back state championships and a new challenge for him. So I'm looking forward to having him, Nick Bradford, Amber Nicholas, and the two new coaches that they're in there now.
Yep. And have there been any changes in the roster as far as additions over the last week or so?
Just the three that the two from ORU that came in. Emily Robinson was the last one, 5'10" guard. Obviously, their leading scorer earlier, Talia had transferred, and obviously Lee Mayberry's daughter, Wynette, is here now. And I'm sure that I'm getting questions all the time about that's 5'7", 5'10", 5'10". Are they going to get some more height? Well, what I've said is all I know is that she's been successful where she's been at. She knows how to recruit a team, and I'm sure that they're not going to send out a bunch of 5'10" players. That they'll have some others on there. Christina Sanchez got back out of the portal and is staying. Haven't heard a lot about it. A lot of the other ones. We'll see where they end up. it is not only portal season in football, but basketball, and so we're all going to be busy these next few weeks.
Yep. I want to turn over to football for just a second, just because the spring game is going to be possibly taking place this weekend. Um, One of the things that I was looking at the first of spring camp was the backup quarterback situation. Uh, Madden Iamaliava came in, was definitely was a solid pencil third, maybe fourth team. Over the last 3 weeks, something's happened with this kid. I don't know if it's just something that kind of clicked, but I feel like right now there is a legit backup quarterback battle that's going to be going into the fall. He got just as many reps as KJ Jackson did in that scrimmage on Saturday. One of the things that I noticed was that guys were able to catch Madden's ball just a little bit easier than KJ's, and that's starting to kind of come to fruition as far as maybe he may have the league going out of spring ball.
Well, we'll find out as we go along. Coach Petrino is a quarterback whisperer. We've known that all along. I think Taylor Green's going to have a better year this year in the passing game, both in terms of accuracy and I think understanding routes and that better. I feel like he's going to have a very good year, maybe even a little underrated because I definitely trust Coach Petrino out there on the football field with quarterbacks. As far as I almost said Nico, but it's Madden.
Bringing him up in just a second.
Yeah. Madden and KJ. KJ has been in the system a couple of years, had the edge going in. I'm sure they'll make the right decision. The one thing I do know is that in no way whatsoever do they want to get Taylor Green hurt. They want him to be the starter, be upright the whole year. But if something does happen, Malachi Singleton came in and did a good job last year when he needed to. But I do think from a depth-wise situation, they're better 1, 2, 3 than they were last year.
They really are. One of the things that folks are also going to see if they're able to watch the spring game this weekend is that Talon's changed his body. I wouldn't say more of the upper half, but I would say more of the lower half. I feel like that the strength and conditioning coaches have put an emphasis on making sure that there is more support around those knees because, like you said, they're going to have him upright all season. That's where that starts, and they've done a great job so far.
I'm told when you're a finely conditioned athlete that the lower body is where you have a lot of injuries, hamstrings or all that. Again, I'm told it's been a while, maybe 40 years since I've been one of those. But he definitely did miss leg day. That obviously was a core factor, a core thing they went after. As you said, he looks fantastic. It looks like looks like an NFL quarterback when he walks into the room. I'm not saying he's there yet. I'm not saying he's not going to get there. We all saw the inconsistency last year, but we saw great plays as well. He has a chance to be one of the best in the SEC this year, and that's saying something. And obviously, it's going to depend a lot on that offensive line and the weapons in the receiving game and running backs. I'm anxious to see that this year, and also anxious to see what happens in this portal. It seems like they feel pretty good about defense when you go, maybe 1 to 15, 1 to 16, something like that, different areas and stuff. But they're going to try to add a few pieces. I know Otis has, some information about who's coming in this next week during the portal and all that. I suspect they'll pick and choose the best they can to kind of flesh out the rest of this roster. And, I get these questions all the time. How are they going to be this year? Well, the easy thing would be to say 7-5, 6-6, 8-4, just pick a number. But with these days, when you have 40 new people coming from high school, coming from portals, some people that are not even here yet, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a guess, but that's all it is. And you can win the underwear Olympics, as they say, all the time, but you're going to have to go out there and win it on the defensive line and offensive line. And those are going to be the keys to me again. I'm still a Bill Keaty bred player in that, the interior lines is where it happens. it's cool to have all these skilled guys, and but get it done on the line. And there have been times the last couple of years where that hadn't been the case.
Yep, and that's where I think that Deke Adams, Travis Williams, they're going to be able to make some strides as far as getting some depth maybe out of the portal on the interior defensive side of the line. Because listen, that's where Arkansas had some of the worst problems last year, was getting pressure in the middle. They were getting pressure on the edges, but they need pressure up the middle. And I think that that's also going to come in with rotation, and that's where it's got to happen.
Yeah, this is the SEC, and I'm on a show called SEC Sidelines on a Wednesday morning that a lot of SEC beat writers, from different sports are on, and Vince Ferrara, who's a Tennessee beat writer, radio guy over there, a good guy. He used to come on and talk about how Tennessee was 12 deep, in the interior line and all that. And, they'd say, well, what about Arkansas? I said, it's not 12, maybe half there, and that's a place they knew they needed to go get some guys. Obviously they did. I'm sure they're going to try to add one or two more because, I know Quentin Murphy, freshman here, from Little Rock Parkview, got in the portal today. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other freshmen at other places that are going to get in the portal just because they didn't get the time they wanted to in the spring. I'm going to stop my opinions at that point, I think. But what I'm saying is you never know who we're going to wake up to tomorrow and see is in the portal. And then you look at your salary cap as you have in college. You see what you have to spend, and you see if you can outbid somebody for it. And that's just about as clear as I can be about things.
Let's talk about that for just a second. I want your opinion on this. Nico Iamaleava going possibly to UCLA, leaving Tennessee, thinking about leaving Tennessee during the playoff run, and what does that say for college quarterbacks these days?
Well, I wasn't in on the recruiting of obviously Madden and when he was here, Otis can probably give a better, answer toward that. What I would say is if you start something, you need to finish it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't take a look and try to get as much money as you can. This day and age, everybody's out chasing the bag, as they say, and I get that. I'm 61. I'm still chasing the bag. If Lanny Beavers will give me more money, I'll take it. But you got to know your leverage. You got to know your leverage, and it appears. And again, I have not met the dad or anything. It appears that those around him certainly thought he was in a place to ask for more money after getting them into their situation they were last year. But, Josh Heupel and apparently some of the other Tennessee people kind of put their foot down. And this was a holdout. This was not going to practice. This was not letting anybody else know. And, kudos to Dan Lanning, who I've always been impressed with, who, if the story is true, and I have to say that if the story is true, and he called Tennessee and said, hey, he's sniffing around here, wanting to know if we were interested. I'm just going to let you know. Yeah. That thing got handled quickly. You have to go to meetings. You have to stay in touch with your head coach. Coach Pittman got a lot of grief over, Braylon Russell and that situation in the portal, out back in the portal, out again. But he said, okay, that's it. He drew a line in the sand, and Braylon and whoever his advisors are decided it was best to stay around, came back, played in the Liberty Bowl, had a decent game. Is someone who I think he's tweaked something and not sure how much he, is going to be able to play, and if they have the red, white game, but is a situation where you have to play the game to a certain point, but you got to know your leverage both as a program and as a player. And I think this is one of the situations where his family thought they had more leverage than they did.
Yeah, because Josh Heupel was ready. So
nobody's bigger than the T, as they said, the big T. So
yeah, it is. And this is, I want to kind of further look at this a little bit, because you don't have a head coach that just one day gets wind from another coach that I'm sure that Heupel has known Lanning since his days at Georgia. But for him to be so decisive on, okay, one day you're my quarterback, and then the next day you're out, you're not our quarterback, you're out of the program, you're not part of the school anymore, you're on your own, you're on the, or well, part of the school, but you're in the portal, and you're not welcome back. So that kind of tells me that not only that was Dan Lanning helping out, Tennessee, saying, hey, this is what's going on. I feel like this was like the straw that broke the camel's back, because to me it sounds like this has been going on for a while.
Yeah, we found out about this obviously last weekend, but I think it's been swirling. Apparently, there was even some talk of negotiations before the playoff. Since he got into the playoff, there should have been more money that you got into the playoff. He was only getting this money for 12 games, and again, I trust the reporting I'm getting from the Tennessee people. And I think that so they probably had a meeting. Danny White, who's not the former Dallas Cowboy quarterback, but the AD at Tennessee now, Josh Heupel, and whoever is the John Tyson, Warren Stevens type folks over there that put money into the program. I'm sure that they had a plan in place that this is as far as we're going with this salary cap thing. That we're not going to be held over the thing. We're going to set an example, and people will like us because they set an example. And Tennessee's getting a lot of acclaim for that. And whether this was a Nico decision or whether a family decision, an agency decision, he's gotten a lot of bad pub, whether he deserves it or not. Again, I'm not saying that it's the kid making the decision, because I can't pinpoint that for sure. But the camp did not have the leverage that it thought it did.
And I think this might serve a little bit of warning to some of the other quarterbacks. I mean, you saw what happened last year with the guy from UNLV. He caught the same exact type of wrath that Nico's catching right now. You leave the program at a really inopportune time, you're going to catch just a litany of shit on social media. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me. I don't know if everybody knows that Madden was committed to UCLA for quite a while, along with the tight end they got as well. Mm-hmm. And now here we are with UCLA, and we'll see if it's valid or not, being the leading candidate or one of the leading candidates to land Nico. That's quite an interesting dynamic there. That's something like on these Bold and Beautiful and Young and Restless that my wife watches, where they come back and it's a sister who was dead 10 years ago and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting to watch. I'm glad that I'm not a part of it per se, making those decisions. But y'all asked for this. Asked for this, and now you're getting it.
Don't you think Sam Pittman's a little happy right now that he's not in the crosshairs with all of this mess? Everything's just kind of been easy as she goes.
Well, we say that, and then we'll wake up tomorrow. I'm not putting. True. I mean, I think whether Coach Pittman does a great job this year coaching, and his staff, where they have a big record, I think that's a great dude, a great man, has the right principles, does things the right way.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll say about him. You'll never get me to trash him as a human being, because I've been around him enough these years to know that's just a good dude there. We all would love to have a beer with him and all that. There's some people that don't want him as the head coach. There's some people that do. It's a business-oriented, a results-oriented business. And, so you got to win. As the buyout goes lower, as the contract gets higher, there's more expectations, more pressure and all that. It's the nature of what we've got here. I am not pleased with the state of college athletics right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm one of these guys that's got to the point where you kids get out of my yard, and that's my yard in the background here. You kids get out of my yard. I have a few more years left. I'm not retiring right now. I'm not. I don't have, let me just say this. I'll retire when I make sure Social Security is solvent. That'll be my biggest political take right there. But I'm just disappointed in what we've gotten into here now, to when we have statements from agents, lawyers, when a kid's coming back, let's run it back. I've got a new contract, a new deal. That's not what it used to be. And I realize I need to move forward and all that. All I'm saying is I will, and I'll watch from afar.
Yeah. I really think that if they are going to have anything to do with contracts with the NCAA should stipulate that they should be able to negotiate those contracts only when the transfer portal is open. That makes the only bit of sense any of this has been going on.
Well, they're not going to come up with rules now. The time to come up with rules was back in the day, and I realize that lawsuit, may have something to do, with how much money people get and all that. But it's just freaking nonsense now.
It is. Well, tomorrow night, myself, Otis, Torchy's Tacos, 7:00, Arkansas Football Report. Make sure to jump on with us then. And then on Saturday is going to be the huge event. Rain or shine, it's going to be inside. Torchy's Tacos in Fayetteville. Myself, Limbo Parks, Donnie Centers, Terry Tatum, Marshall Foreman, and Luther Franklin will be with. And also Alyssa Orange is going to co-host with me. Also I heard a tidbit, Dudley, that Greg Thomas might be lurking in just kind of might jump in with us a little bit. So I'm hoping that happens too.
That sounds like a great crew. A lot of great folks, and a lot of them happy I'm friends with.
Yep, and it's going to be a great time. So join us.
Even if one of them talks too much crap about the Cowboys. So Limbo.
Hey, don't worry. I think you got Donnie Centers going to be right there with you to give Limbo some shit because I'm going to tell you what, some of the stuff that those two go back and forth so much. It's so much fun just being part of the conversation with them too. So, Dudley, we'll do this again next Monday at 7 p.m. Our new slated time. We'll be back then, and I hope to see you guys again tomorrow night, 7:00. Saturday, it's going to be 11:30. So join us when you can. So for myself and Dudley, thank you guys for jumping on with us tonight, and go Hogs.